2018, around about 30% of the British public said that their job gave them no meaning and was more than likely contributing to destroying the planet. And then we wonder why there's sort of mental health crises and disengagement rates at work. It's like, I always think when I was working in the corporate world, it's kind of like I'm spending time creating this spreadsheet that I don't like doing and I'm not good at, to send this spreadsheet to someone else in another company who doesn't even want to read it. Yet here we all are, shuffling spreadsheets and sending emails and doing stuff that if we didn't do it, the world wouldn't stop spinning on its axis.
Let's talk about values. I do want to get into how you acquire clients in a second. I know using a tool called hunter.io, which is really awesome. But let's come back to values real quick. Where does someone start if they're going, we don't have these things, not the certification part, but come up with the ideation about what's the meaning of their business? What's the purpose of the business? Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of More Clients, Less Effort. I am joined today in the studio, virtual studio, by Tim Jones. Tim, welcome to the show, mate.
G'day, or kia ora, or shumai.
Kia ora.
We'll cover all our bases.
Right, just in case. Tim's the CEO, founder, and B consultant at Grow Good. You can also find him on LinkedIn at Tim Jones, aka that B Corp Bloke. Tim's a CEO, founder, and B consultant, which we're going to get into shortly. Grow Good, a global consulting firm that specializes in helping businesses simplify and fast track, not track fast, their B Corp journey, as well as guiding its clients to gain their B Corp certification. He helps deliver inspirational, motivational, memorable, and impactful consulting, training, and coaching individuals and organizations. He helps them achieve meaningful goals in life and work by tapping into the potential of their purpose-fueled film performance. He's been described as a hybrid of the brains of Russell Brand, the energy of Tony Robbins, and the humor of Greg Davies, a UK comedian and host of Talkmaster.
There we go. Have you seen Taskmaster?
I have not seen Taskmaster, but I'm going to look it up now.
I think you'll need to look it up. I think based on our pre-podcast chat, I think your sense of humor will very much align with Greg Davies and Taskmaster.
Mate, before we get into too much of your journey into business, but I'm coming very quickly about what B Corp is, because I know a lot of our listeners won't be familiar with.
Sure. So B Corp, the B stands for benefit, so benefit corporations, and B Corp certification is an independent verification of a company's social and environmental performance. So increasingly, at the big end of town, listed companies are having to do mandatory reporting of their social and environmental performance. B Corp is a framework. That there are a handful of frameworks out there, but B Corp is increasingly being well received and looked at by companies because it's globally recognized. It provides independent verification of claims that you're making about your social and environmental performance, and it looks at your social and environmental performance. So a lot of companies might become living wage certified, or they might have a product fair trade certified, or what have you. B Corp is kind of like a fair trade certification for your entire organization's performance. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Okay, so we're not looking just as on the sort of financial fundamentals of your business. You're looking at, I think you mentioned 5 things. Yes, we touched on their social and environmental performance.
So social environment at the high level, the 5 areas that your business is looked or assessed against is your governance. So how transparent is your company? Is it easy to work out who owns this company? Or do you have 50 shell companies ending up somewhere in the Bahamas and no one knows what's going on? Do you have internal and external reporting on more than just financials? So do you do a report showing what your social and environmental performance is? Do the team track and report KPIs beyond just financial reporting? It looks at how you treat your staff. In Aussie and New Zealand, most staff are treated pretty well because the government makes you do that. So we have holiday entitlement, we've got superannuation, pensions, access to healthcare. It might not always be the greatest as you would perceive it, but hey, you get to walk into a hospital and someone's going to treat you. Leave entitlement, parental leave entitlement, all that kind of stuff. But it also looks at workforce development. So are you offering training and career progression opportunities to your staff? It looks at your community impact, which looks at, are you doing any volunteering or charitable contributions, donations in kind, or what have you? It looks at a little bit of the makeup of the diversity of your team. And then it also looks, depending on what you're selling. So if you're selling a product or a service, if you're selling a product, it will also look at your supply chain. So where are you getting stuff from? Where are you getting it from? What the impact of your supply chain is. And then the environment one is mainly inputs and outputs. So how much water, energy do you use? Where does that all come from? How much waste do you make? And how much are you recycling versus not recycling? Stuff like that. And then the customer section fundamentally looks at, well, what is the product you sell? Do you have any quality assurance, guarantees, warranties? Yeah, things like that in place. So it's I hate the word holistic, but it is a pretty holistic overview of how a company is performing sort of behind the scenes operationally rather than just financially.
And these things are really becoming increasingly a concern in consumer choice about who they work with, isn't it?
100%. Yeah.
It's one thing to sell shoes, but not if your company sort of involves trafficking child labour in the background to actually produce the shoes.
100%. 100%.
In the first place. But we're all squeaky clean, but that's our suppliers.
Yeah, but don't talk. Yeah, you don't know where we get this shit from. Yeah. And that's the thing. So we're seeing four main, well, I suppose technically five pressures. So consumer pressure, increasingly savvy consumer wants to know where, like exactly where does this thing come from? What's the impact of it? The increasingly the war for talent. People, in terms of talent attraction and retention, employees want to know that the company they're working for is doing more than just trying to make as much money as possible for the founder owner. We're seeing supply chain pressure. So we've had a couple of clients just start working with us where they were distributing product into North America and into Europe, and their distributor said, "Hey, look, you guys need to have some kind of independent verification about your creds because our retail customers are now demanding that." We're seeing investor pressure. So throughout from startup all the way through to scale up and beyond, increasingly before and even at the bank level, like national, regional bank level, they are increasingly want to know beyond just the financial return, are you selling endangered species? Because if you are, actually, in a lot of cases, the banks will go, we can't actually, we cannot even lend you any money. Because
I mean, the financial fundamentals of selling endangered species is really good, but not so not so quality on the environmental social impact side of things.
Exactly. I mean, I've been a bit facetious on that one, but there have been a couple of companies over here in New Zealand where they've been exposed to serious labour law violations, and the bank have basically said, we can no longer work with you. You cannot be a customer of ours anymore because of this. So the risk factor for lenders is getting bigger and bigger. And then the last
risk and says you work with these guys, so we can't work with you.
100%. And then lastly, I'd say that the regulatory pressure, which is mainly hitting at the big end of town. But if you're a company selling into a bigger company, increasingly those bigger companies now have to do, I think particularly in Aussie, there's mandatory reporting on social and particularly environmental performance. So if you are a plumber or a tradie or a consultant who's done one piece of work for a large company, at some point in the near future, they're going to be knocking on your door going, "Hey, Tim, we need to know what your environmental performance is for the last 3 years because you've done one small job for us."
Yeah, we're seeing quite a lot of that working, particularly if you've got government clients.
Massively.
And as I said, major corporations. You almost have to carry a certain measure of certifications, whether they're ISO certifications or B Corp certifications.
Yeah.
Sort of go along with it. Talk to me about your journey, because you weren't always in this space.
No.
Talk to me about how midlife crisis, earthquakes in Christchurch a few years back and the birth of your child.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that. And what was the thing that I'm not going in the direction I want?
Yeah. So, I mean, you kind of summed it up there, basically. So 2010, 2011 here in Christchurch. I'm originally from the UK. New Zealand does a really good job of selling itself against Australia by going, "Ooh, Australia, full of animals that will kill you." But what they neglect to tell you about New Zealand is that it is also known as the Shaky Isles. There are 50 active volcanoes under Auckland, and they have massive earthquakes. So go New Zealand Tourism Board on selling the bait and switch on that one. So 2010, 2011, we had a series of massive earthquakes here in Christchurch. And then 2012, my wife and I had our daughter. And it's well known in the clinical psychological literature that if you have a near-death experience, the birth of a child into your life, or the death of someone close to you, that can trigger what's called a subconscious awakening. So you're literally sort of shaken. And it's quite often people have that midlife crisis because maybe a parent dies, or they might have just had a child, or what have you, or you do something stupid and have a near-death experience. So I had this moment, and so I had a 10-year amazing, enjoyed almost every moment of it, working in the medical device industry. So selling hips and knees initially, and then spinal instruments and implants to orthopedic and neurosurgeons. And so you were essentially pretty much your own boss. So you had a sales territory that you were in charge of. You were given a sales target, typically from corporate HQ. But in terms of how you went and achieved that, it was pretty much down to you. So I kind of felt like I've been running lots of little mini businesses to a degree. But this moment led me to really consider what I was doing. There's some well-documented issues within the medical device industry. There's a Netflix documentary called The Bleeding Edge, which is a really good expose of the sort of corruption. And then if you've seen the Painkillers series on Netflix, again, about the Sackler family, but fundamentally, that's how the medical industry runs. We want to sell as many products as we can. So we will invent diagnoses for patients and then sell the product to fix the thing that actually wasn't that much of a thing to begin with. So yeah, all of that, and there was a fair bit of corruption going on. Companies bribing surgeons to use their products and bits and bobs, and yeah, this moment led me to go, well, hang on a minute, why am I working for these companies? Because I'm not that kind of person. I have got values, but they're completely out of whack.
There's that values misalignment, and I think that's really
100%.
important. It's one of the things we don't look at enough when we look at who is it, not only what we do, but who is it that we want to work with as customers to go,
100%.
well, are we actually values aligned? It's not just a case of you've got a problem that I can solve. We actually have to be aligned pretty much with our customers as well. And I was actually just recorded another podcast before this one, where we're talking about that very thing, where it's not always, if you line up all of your customers, please line up and say, my best client to my worst client. You probably find that your best clients have a really close values alignment. And too often we don't actually kind of express that through our marketing to go, these are our values and these are the kinds of clients we want to work with. And if you don't if you don't have these value alignment, for some reason, it's almost an intangible thing. You talked about workforces being one of the B Corp certification kind of criteria. If we're not really aligned in terms of values, we're not going to actually like working. They're going to have a higher staff turnover. They won't be.
And I think that is a big, for me, that is the big elephant in the room that people are talking about. Lack of purpose and meaning at work. There was so the British government do these YouGov surveys intermittently, and this was a few years ago now, so I probably need to get the updated stats or whether they actually ran it again because the results were so awful. But I think it was about 2018, around about 30% of the British public said that their job gave them no meaning and was more than likely contributing to destroying the planet. And then we wonder why there's sort of mental health crises and disengagement rates at work. It's like, but I always think when I was working in the corporate world, it's kind of like I'm spending time creating this spreadsheet that I don't like doing and I'm not good at, to send this spreadsheet to someone else in another company who doesn't even want to read it. Yet here we all are shuffling spreadsheets and sending emails and doing stuff that if we didn't do it, the world wouldn't stop spinning on its axis. And I think that is one of the real missing pieces. And yeah, just lack of values alignment. But I think also within that, it's the lack of actually getting deep into your values. And for me, this shake-up led me to go, actually, who am I? Like, what do I believe in? And I think there's nothing worse than the sort of bullshit bingo values printed on the wall. Integrity. Yeah, well, everyone's got that. Professionalism. Well, I kind of pay for professionalism, but that's why I'm coming to you. It's like, really? The same.
I hope that was a given.
Yeah, it's like, I kind of call these table stakes, to be honest, in just doing business. And I think that's part of the problem is a lot of people, just aren't thinking to that depth of actually, and it shines through with clients. I mean, this is where I got to. I remember the day I was standing because my job was to go into the operating theatre, and work with an orthopedic surgeon to make sure that they got the best outcome from my products during that procedure. And I was standing in this procedure, and the orthopedic surgeon was being particularly belligerent, shouting at all the staff because things weren't going very well for him. And I just remember thinking, you entitled dick, like you're the one in the room earning the millions of dollars. Like, yes, it's not going very well, but it's a clearly surmountable challenge that you've got. Everyone here who's on minimum wage is trying to help you. And I just remember walking out of that surgery and I went home and said, I'm just done. I can't hang out with these people. And that was a real big moment. It's like I'd been faking it because hanging out with orthopedic and neurosurgeons, going to international conferences, flying business class, is like, yeah, that's cool. But actually you go, but my customers are all dicks and I don't actually enjoy hanging out with them.
I think you pick a really important sort of factor there. I remember my last job with, and I won't say who it was, but their idea of cultural change was exactly what you say, right? We had some sort of things hanging from the ceiling that said words like value and fun and blah, 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 blah. And we haven't had these notebooks that had like coloured swirls that obviously paid thousands of dollars to some graphic design firm to create these on notepads that sort of had the values listed on them. I've gone, this is not how you bring cultural change around. You bring cultural change around by actually kind of by the boss sort of stopping by for a chat over the petition to say what you doing for the weekend, or congratulations on the birth of your daughter, or how was the skiing last weekend? This is what we mean by cultural change. And I think when we kind of look at that in context of how we position our marketing, I'm reminded of a radio ad that one of our local real estate agencies here used to run all the time. And I haven't heard it for a while, possibly because I'm listening to podcasts rather than radio in the car now. But it was what sets us apart is our quality, so the quality of our service. And what does that mean? So I think it might have been our professionalism and quality of service, right? And I'm going, well, hang on, I expect you to be professional and I expect you to deliver a quality service. So how does that set you apart from?
How's that differentiate?
It doesn't differentiate, right? It doesn't set you apart. What sets us apart is either how we do something or what we stand for when we deliver that thing. And too often when we don't actually look at this stuff, which is nice let's be real, this is all really nice to have. It's not fundamental, right? You don't have to have all these things unless it's being sort of forced upon you by a client that you're working with. You don't have to have them.
Yep.
But if you do have them and you integrate them into your marketing and say what we stand for, right, at the appropriate time, actually makes your client feel better about the decision that they're making to work with you.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not just, I'm not just putting in, I actually had another client recently, and we did a sort of values exercise and said, what's important to you in your business? And a husband and wife team. And he's like, I want to create a legacy. I really want to sort of inspire and encourage the next generation of people in my profession and get more young people into this sector, right? And she was, I want my team to make me more money. I'm going, that's fantastic. One of these two values is one that we can get people wrapped in behind and encouraged about. The other one, no chance in hell. So keep that to yourself and don't share that with anyone.
Yeah. And that's the thing, that automatically there's a tension now. There's a tension between the couple, and that tension is going to manifest itself on the day-to-day and making the decisions. And the whole your vibe attracts your tribe, like the energy that they're both going to be putting out in meetings with potential clients. It's like you can feel it.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite expressions. I can never remember the guy's name, but he was head of alumni affairs at Notre Dame University in the States. And he said, don't tell me your values, show me where you spend your money. And I think that is always the key, because it's like, we've got the values which have been put together. Worst case scenario, the CEO's just gone and Googled values and chosen 4 that they like the meaning of. Second worst is they've probably engaged some marketing consultant to create them on their behalf. And it's like, I mean, when I worked at Johnson & Johnson, they literally have a thing called, in their medical device division, they have a thing called the Credo. It says our number 1 priority is to fix the patients that our products are designed for. Our number 2 priority is to support the surgeons, doctors, and nurses that fix those patients. Our number 3 priority is to serve the communities in which they work in and we work in. Our 4th priority is to make a profit. Yet every day, in every way, every decision was actually profit, 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 profit. Look, if we lose a few, it's all good. And that was the thing for me as a young, naive person entering the workforce. I was like, yeah, but what about the Credo? And then you just hear the old guys go, still believes in the Credo, what an idiot. And I just think, that was my experience of most corporate jobs was, values, schmalues. Right now, it's about making dollar and making bank. So just go out there and sell your grandmothers.
Yeah. And look, I mean, we've sort of got commercialism to sort of thank for that, right? Going back to sort of Bud Fox and Gordon Gekko in Wall Street. It's like, how can we make more money and everything else be damned?
Yeah. But I think this is the misnomer, because I'm not against people making money, but I think the difference is profit versus profiteering. And I think in many cases, it's people pushing into that profit. When you're getting a profiteering mindset of at all costs, I want to make as much money as possible. Yet we know in all the clinical literature, beyond a certain amount of money, you're not more happy. Yes, you get the opportunity to do more things, but you're just going on a better ski trip with better drinks. But the marginal gain that you get at that level, whereas we know that need or deep-seated desire for meaning and purpose and fulfillment, that is actually what we're all looking for. And you can get that, but you don't have to have that at the expense of, you don't have to be wearing a hair shirt and self-flagellating yourself to get that. You can have you can do well and do good. And I think that's what I really like about the B Corp movement. What we're trying to say is like, yeah, you can make money. Making money is not bad, but it's how you're making the money and what you're doing with the money. And I think that's just where we need a bit of a recalibration in the wider business.
I completely agree with you. One thing I know that I try and encourage my kids' rugby team about, and I noticed, right? I think a lot of people who have sort of been through corporate at some point or government have had some really great bosses and some really shit ones.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think you've got to look at you as a leader in your company and go, well, am I going to be a really great boss? Am I being a really shit boss? Right. In terms of my leadership style and the environment we created. And something I tried to teach my kids when I was coaching kids rugby was that if we can get an environment where everyone just lifts by 10%, effectively we've got 2 more players on the field than the other team.
Yeah.
Okay. And if we've got 2 more players, we'll win. Right. And if you think about this in the context of your business as well, unless you're a sole trader, in which case it's just you and you've got all the agency in the world to decide what value you're getting from it, in addition to what you're taking out of your business. But if you've got a team of people, if you can instill purpose and meaning into that team, right, and get them aligned behind the why they do what they do and what the impact of what they do, which is not the bottom line in terms of how much money you take out, right? Because that's something that's very hard to get behind as an employee. You get that extra 10, 15, 20% productivity out of those employees, which is worth, it's now that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 extra players on your team into a similar sized organization.
Yeah.
Which means you win.
Yeah. I think that the stat is 4 times engagement, 5 times productivity on a task if you are aligned to the purpose and you understand why you're doing it and the impact of it. So which is why I call it purpose-fueled performance. It's like it is literally a super fuel that if you can connect into it, it's like nuclear energy. It's just free energy that will just accelerate your business to the next level. But like you say, it's a bit woo-woo. It's a bit soft. It's not. Well, we can buy this machine and that will increase productivity by X%. Well, yeah, you can do that, but if you get into the heads of the team, like you say, and align them around purpose and a compelling vision and understand the impact of what we're doing, that is a super fuel that once it's in the team, it's really, really hard to knock it out, and it will far extend the impact of the machine that goes bleep.
Let's talk about values. I do want to get into how you acquire clients in a second. I know using a tool called hunter.io, which is really awesome. But let's come back to values real quick. Where does someone start if they're going, we don't have this, we don't have these things, not the certification part, but come up with the ideation about what's the meaning of their business, what's the purpose of the business?
Yeah, I mean, in most cases, if it's a legacy business that you've taken ownership of or you're now the leader of, like, go back to the beginning of why the business was initiated. If you look at some of the biggest brands like your Unilevers and Procters and Gamble's and even Johnson & Johnson. So Johnson & Johnson was founded by the brothers Johnson, who they invented Band-Aid. So their first product was Band-Aid, which was all about creating healthy outcomes for people so they didn't get gangrene from a small cut. So hugely purpose-driven start of the business. But now it's this global behemoth multinational entity that's all about stock price and shareholder return. And literally, there've been lawsuits against them. They've had some of the biggest lawsuits against them for medical misadventure and products being launched too soon. So they're in the arena, but they've taken their eye off, we're just making a product to fix as many people as we can. And it's been captured by the money. So I think in most businesses, at the end of every value chain, there is a human being who you're solving a problem for. And the key is to understand, well, what is the meaning and impact of us solving that problem? And in some cases, it's going to be less than others. Like one of the products I like to berate the most was a product called Pooch Selfie. So it's a little attachment you can put on top of your cell phone and it holds a tennis ball and it makes it easier for you to get a selfie with your dog. You just sort of go, well, can it really? It's pretty hard to get fired up about selling as many of those as you can when you think about probably 90% of them are a last minute purchase for a crap birthday present that ends up in landfill. So you kind of go, well, are we really making a dent in the universe on that one? Probably not. But in most other jobs, it's think about why did we start this business and who is at the end of our value chain and what difference do we make? And the key then is to get as many of your company to connect and meet the people that they're influencing and affecting change on so that they recognize that. Like we did some purpose work with a medical company a couple of years ago, small New Zealand one. And they were so fixated on just knocking out widgets that they'd missed the connection that actually their product ends up being used by a surgeon in an operating room, which is making that procedure less stressful, which is getting better health outcomes for ordinary New Zealanders and people all over the world. And they had completely lost sight of that. That's quite meaningful, knowing that your granddad, grandmother, sister, brother, auntie, uncle has had a better knee replacement by virtue of the job that you do. If you're just looking at, well, we're just churning out as many of these little devices as we can, well, yeah, sure, that can be pretty meaningless. So, yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. I think that's a really important thing. Again, if you're listening to this right now thinking, what's our purpose? Again, go back to the start and say, why did I open this? And yes, you absolutely open your business to be able to make money and have autonomy and agency over your own future. Maybe it was because your boss sucked at what they did and you didn't like them very much and you thought you could do a better job. But what's important to you? Why do you do what you do? Is that really, really good sort of analysis of it. Okay. And again, put the money aside. We get that everyone's in business to make money for themselves and create autonomy and freedom of choice for themselves and their family. But why else do you do what you do? What are you hoping to impact and how do you want to impact people? What legacy do you want to leave? Is a really important sort of question to ask. Mate, let's pivot. Let's talk about Hunter.io. I know you use that as part of your prospecting process. Firstly, explain to me what Hunter.io is. I know, but not necessarily all the listeners do. And how do you use it to systemize your customer outreach?
Yep. So yeah, I mean, my career was in sales. When I was doing medical sales, you've got a pretty easily defined customer base, and you don't really do cold outreach because you go to a hospital and you go, "Hey, there are any spine surgeons here?" And they go, "Yeah, they're over there." And you go, "Hi, I'd like to try and sell you some stuff." So it was. I kind of understood sales, but when I started my own business, it was like, well, hang on a minute. I've actually got to try and find people that I don't know and who don't know me at all, and maybe don't even know that my product exists. So yeah, Hunter was something that I found fairly early on in the piece, and it's useful for a few reasons. One, finding people's email addresses, because obviously if you're trying to do some outreach to people, I am my sort of I know well, I'm kind of I don't know whether the argument is still ranging around, oh, should you cold call, shouldn't you, should you not cold call? I'm sort of firmly of the believer that I'd rather send an email first and then try and get them on a call rather than cold call them to try and get an email. I mean, horses for courses. But so Hunter is really good at helping you find people's email addresses. So you there's a Google plugin. You can go onto a website, you press the little Hunter button, and it basically says, here are some email addresses that we found through this domain. And sometimes they won't find any, but sometimes they will find them, and they'll find 100 of them. And you can go, I feel pretty confident that it's going to be tim.hyde@company.com. Cool. Tim Hyde's the guy I need to send an email to. Away we go. So within that, they've also got some like lead generation lists. So I think they plug into LinkedIn, and they kind of pull data from LinkedIn so that you can then, instead of like you trying to find one company at a time on the internet, which is one method you can do. Like for me, a lot of food and beverage, FMCG companies are quite hot on B Corp at the minute. So what I might do is go to LinkedIn, find a company that is already a B Corp in that sector, and then it will say, hey, these are companies that are like this company. So you kind of get a list of the companies that you might want to think about. You could then go to Hunter, check out their website, find an email, So Hunter also then lets you do that at scale by kind of going, right, I'm looking for food and beverage companies in Canberra that have got, I don't know, was it 1 to 10 employees? And it'll find a list of those companies. And then you can then, I've got one of the paid subscriptions. It gives you X number of credits per month to go and find some emails. And then beyond that, they also have a campaigns feature. So you can create an email sequence, 1, 2, 3, 4, however many you want, with the function that if person replies, remove them from the sequence. So you can sort of, in one system, find and create a lead list, check emails, and then send a campaign. And I think it's, is it 24 or 30 US bucks a month for like the standard basic version, which is pretty reasonable for what it lets you do. And then it also lets you do like a bulk email feature. So if you want to send like an update to a bunch of clients and not do it through MailChimp, you can use like a bulk email, which is essentially, I guess, what it is, a cold email outreach feature. So yeah,
well, it's really kind of filling in the gaps in, I mean, other than sort of email communication, it's a tool that can help fill the gaps in your data knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Now, people share this stuff publicly, right?
Yeah.
There might be email address on LinkedIn or on Facebook or on their website or something, right? People are sharing this data. And what I like about Hunter, and there are other tools, so if you're trying to find some others, just really go to hunter.io versus and it'll list a
million others.
And hit go in your Google or Bing search. It gives you the opportunity to kind of fill gaps in the data knowledge that you've got from your sort of single source. And I think this is where, if we're looking at creating leverage in our marketing process to sort of find the prospects we want, if this is an appropriate way for you to find prospects, of course, it's a fantastic way of sort of going, okay, I know this is the person I reach, but I don't have their contact details. Let me see how I can find those. And Hunter is one of those tools that can actually go and get that additional information from other locations and then sort of bring it back and consolidate it for you. And you can do whatever you want with it, right? So when it doesn't change your necessarily marketing outreach, whether you're calling an email or emailing and calling or sending some lumpy mail. But a common one that we sort of get the clients to do is also, if I know that I want to talk to Tim Jones at the B Corp Bloke, but I want to send Tim a gift to say, hey, it was great to chat, or look forward to chatting to you, and here's a bit about what it is we do. You can use tools like Hunter to go and find that information so that you can put it into the rest of your marketing process and then kind of use that data, I guess, however you want to. Now, the flip side, of course, is that if you don't want to be found like that, make sure your data isn't everywhere. So you could actually use Hunter to look yourself and say, well, what information have I got out there and where is it?
There's one of those US-based, I think it might be Zoom Info or one of them, where my name is incorrectly listed against a guy who is, I think he's head of IT for like a large company. And so I regularly get emails and phone calls coming in. Hey, Tim, and because his name's Tim Jones, like, hey, Tim, it's Aaron here from, I just want to check in with you and see if I could get 5 minutes to talk about some tech platform. And I'm
wrong Tim.
Yeah, I quite often ring them back and go, hey, it's the wrong Tim, but I like your style. I thought your outreach was pretty good. You might want to just consider this. But yeah, can you go and update the platform for me again for like the 10th time and try and get my name off it? So yeah, definitely check yourself on the internet and see what this is.
Tim Jones being an incredibly uncommon name, right?
There's about 10 million of us just in Christchurch. Yeah.
I did actually find out recently, I did find a tool that could look up how many of you existed somewhere else.
Wow.
There's 13 Tim Hydes in the US.
Wow, not that many.
Yeah.
Because it was that guy, Dave Gorman, wasn't he? A British comedian who he Googled all the other Dave Gormans around the world and went and met them. And I think if I did that as Tim Jones, I'd probably go bankrupt the first day.
Yeah, but it'd make for a good story, right?
Yeah.
Tim Jones on tour. Yeah, that's all. I think that, again, there's lots of these little tools out there that for really minimal cost, you can kind of use in your business.
Yeah.
But as long as you're using them effectively.
Totally.
And appropriately, they can add a lot of value. And if you don't, well, again, a bit like a car that's sitting in your driveway and never gets driven.
I mean, and the Hunter free version is amazing. It's just got limits on how many. So if you're a small business, the free version is amazing. It gives you, I think, maybe 100 email or 50 verifications of emails a month. And I think you can maybe send like 1,000 emails or something ridiculous through their platform. So if you're a small business, which doesn't need a ton of leads, like for free, it's insane. Yeah.
Now we are talking about marketing qualified leads, not sales qualified leads. Important difference. Marketing qualified lead, right company, right size, right name.
Yep.
Sales qualified lead, they're actually interested in talking to you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
That's the difference.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay. Let's finish out the call today. We're going to throw a couple of quick fire questions at you.
No, I'm scared.
You're scared. Let's go with this one. What do people misunderstand about you most?
Oh, well, that's a great question. I think sometimes people think I am quite lighthearted. I try and bring humour to the situation, but actually I am quite a deep thinker. And I think I've been on a podcast with a mate of mine, and he was like, "Wow, actually, I didn't know there was this depth to you." Okay,
I love this one. You sort of ask your parents, and say, "What do you think? What do your parents think you do?"
No idea.
Who's been your most important professional mentor over us since 2010, 2012 when you changed?
Yeah, I probably like the main mentor, on the hero's journey, the mentor appears. That would be this guy, Steve Arder, because he was the guy who, when I discovered B Corp, I reached out to him. He was the first B Corp here in New Zealand. And I sent him a message and said, hey, I've stumbled across this B Corp thing. I'd love to know a bit more about it. And we booked a 30-minute, 45-minute cup of tea meeting at his office. And I left 4 hours later, and he had re-explained how the system could work for me in a way that benefits for all. So he was, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here today doing what I'm doing, for sure.
Well, thank you, Steve. What's your motto? Do you have one?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I kind of stolen the Shackleton family motto. So Ernest Shackleton, the guy who went down to Antarctica, got turned to custard pretty quickly. Through endurance we conquer was their family motto. And that has just been my sort of general vibe in life. Every rugby team I played for, we were typically the underdogs. I was in the reserve forces in the British Army for a while. And it's just like, how long are we marching for, sir? Until you're told to stop. Okay.
What a dumb question to ask in the army, right?
Yeah.
I'd still tell you otherwise.
Yeah. And I just think in a sales and business, when it's your own business, you can't stop. Like, there is no finish line, and there's always one more thing to do. And it links back to that depth of purpose and meaning. Like, if there's purpose and meaning to what you're doing, it is finite. Sorry, it is infinite. Purpose is infinite. Willpower is finite. And so the positive is I keep going. Sometimes you look at the horse and it is quite dead, and it's like, probably could have stopped flogging that a couple of years ago. But
yeah,
so
unless it's a Monty Python film, it's like, I'm not dead yet.
I'm not quite dead yet.
Not quite dead yet. What do you wish when you started?
I think the key for me was what I should have known is one product, one problem, one offer type situation. When I started the business, mistakenly under the impression that, particularly in New Zealand, like, you kind of have to be a jack of all trades. So I spent a year working for a training company before I went out on my own, got made redundant from them. And they did, we do leadership training, we do marketing training, we do sales training, we do leadership training. So when I started, I was like, okay, well, he's got a successful business. I kind of need to offer everything. But over the last few years, like, we've just really come down to, basically, we help you get B Corp certified. Yes, we still offer all the other stuff that we did before, but it's that one product, one problem, one product type offer that just makes it really clear to let people know what you do. Whereas before, I didn't even really know what I did. And I get into when you're networking or meeting somebody, they say, what do you do? And it's, well, what do you do? And it gets a bit awkward. Whereas now we just go, we're B Corp consultants and we help you simplify and fast track your journey to B Corp. And if people know what that is, they go, oh, fantastic. I want to have a chat with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Say you win $10 million in the lottery tomorrow. This is clearly not a US lottery.
$1 billion.
$1 billion. I think someone won $1.8 billion there or something.
That's insane, isn't it?
Right? Of course, you don't get it all because the government didn't go and take half of it back.
Yeah.
But if you won $10 million on a scratchy or in the lottery tomorrow, what would you spend it on?
Clear the mortgage, probably take a bit of time off, go on a nice big holiday and think about life a little bit more. Fundamentally, though, I mean, I'd probably buy a few houses just to create that wealth platform for future generations and probably give a ton of it away to charity. Yeah. I'm not a very money driven person. Like I want enough. I've got a quote up here on my sort of board over here that you can't see. Ice Cube, the rapper. And he said he knew he made it when he could buy it and not sweat it. And that's kind of where I want to get to. It's like, know that I can kind of just go and afford to do something without stressing about the money, but I don't need a Scrooge McDuck room where I go and swim in my coins and dollars every night and don't do anything good with it.
Yeah, look, it's the same thing. I want to be able to sort of go skiing or go to a nice restaurant and not worry about the fact that buying a $200 bottle of wine rather than a $30 bottle of wine. And know where that's coming from. It's abundant without being greedy.
Yeah, totally.
And I would go skiing. I'd make sure I take 3 months off every year to go skiing somewhere for 6 weeks, and then 6 weeks sitting on the beach somewhere.
Pretty much. There's a bunch of, long term. There's again on my sort of little board over here. There's a bunch of stuff I'd love to get into writing some books. I'm really interested in sort of slightly esoteric stuff, some really ancient history stuff. Like I studied medieval history at university, so there's a whole bunch of stuff there. I'd love to have I think most people just want the bandwidth and capacity to be able to actually go and explore the things that they want to go and explore. And I think that's what most people are trying to do in their businesses, get to that point where they can just go, I've got enough now. I can kind of do more of what I want to do rather than kind of what I have to do. But it's interesting you mentioned the lotto. So statistically, 10 years after the event, people who've become paraplegic are happier than people who won the lottery.
Well, there's an interesting insight for you.
Yeah.
Mate, last question, or second last question anyway. What are 3 books that you'd recommend to people listening to this podcast and why?
As he looks around his office. On the fiction side, The Count of Monte Cristo, it's just a really good book. Just a rollicking ride of intrigue and suspense and revenge. Really, just really good. What other books have I think probably Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl would be up there. That kind of sets the scene pretty well. And I'm trying to think what other books. What's the other one I've read recently? I've read one recently about the Grand Canyon, but that's probably not that interesting for people because we went there on holiday. It's probably a little bit cliched, but probably some of Jordan Peterson's, like the 12 Rules for Life. I know he can be a bit of a polarizing person, but some genuinely, I've got his Rule 2 poster printed up behind me. Imagine who you could be and then single-mindedly aim at it. Well, that's not bad advice for life, is it?
No, not at all. Not at all. That's something I might go and tell my son, who really needs to get a job now that he's 5 months out of school.
Go tidy your room.
Go tidy your room. Good job. But lastly, where can we find you online?
Pretty much, if you can't find me online, the internet is probably broken. Mainly hanging out on LinkedIn. So yeah, if you just search for Tim Jones, that B Corp Bloke, or Grow Good on LinkedIn. Website is just growgood.co. Yeah, between those 2 places, you'll find me.
Yeah, awesome. We'll definitely put those links in the show notes. So if you want to look those up, we can find Tim. Mate, really appreciate you sharing your insights and advice. Great call. And I think there's a couple of books there that I'm going to read as Max comes into the room and says, I'm on a call. No, no, James, you can't put my car. This is what happens when you
see. That's the classic sales analogy I always use. It's like asking your dad for the car keys. Right time. Has he made you lunch? Has he got you your favourite pair of slippers? Yeah, there's all the things he should have done to preempt the question of kind of brought the car keys. Absolutely.
Guys, thanks again for joining us another episode of More Clients, Less Effort. You can find all the show notes linked on the website at winmoreclients.com.au/podcast. Go and check out all of the work, the amazing stuff that Tim is doing over at Grow Good and that B Corp Bloke on LinkedIn and on the web. And we'll catch you on another episode real soon.